are Kobe and Phreak. How you guys doing?
Doing great, man. LCS is going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. It starts tomorrow for Europe and for us in North America a few days from now. It's actually worth noting the only team in North America, Cloud9, is starting the same players from last split. So there are a lot of changes to choose from for this list. First up, actually, number 5, it's Team Solomid's new jungler, Santorin. Now, Santorin was a member of Team Coast in the Challenger Series. This year, he's going to be facing off against his former team as a member of Team Solomid, who are the defending champions. Really big shoes to fill in that sense.
Right.
And he's a player who hasn't necessarily lived up to the pressure in the past. I'm looking forward to see how he does on TSM with a coaching staff and some time to develop.
Yeah, the cool thing is he was a good jungler as far as Challenger was concerned. Of course, he's in a bigger league now, and that is going to be more difficult for him. We've only seen him once, and that was at IEM San Jose, and TSM did not look good there. They got crushed by Unicorns of Love, but as you said, they've got the staff behind it, they've got some practice time. Hopefully he does live up to the hype, because I think TSM really wants to defend that throne.
Yeah, and the way that he kind of failed at IEM San Jose was fairly typical of newer players on bigger stages. Yes, he was on Coast, but there's a lot more pressure playing for TSM and those TSM bans. You could really tell, especially as a jungler, just whenever you're scared to make a move like that or scared to take risks, then you just become a lot easier of a target for the opponent team.
Yeah, all the jungler does is take risks,
yeah.
It seems like.
Yeah, it's kind of the entire point of it. But of course, now next up is going to be number 4 on our list, and that is another jungler. It's Rush, the solo queue god of Korea. He's rushing in to fill a jungle role for Team Impulse.
Hardy har, rushing in to fill a jungle role. Honestly, though, I'm really intrigued by this acquisition because if we look at the history of Korean talent moving to North America, it feels to me like the ones that have team experience have succeeded and the ones that are supposed to be these untapped prodigies have been the ones that fell by the wayside. So this guy, great solo queue experience, not much team experience, and he's not going to be speaking the language. So it's stacked up against him, but I really want to see him perform.
And the thing is, Rush is going to be their shot caller. He does speak English fairly well, but they also haven't even had time to practice with each other. So this is going to be a completely random group of guys that are going to be in the LCS now, and they're going to have a new shot caller that just comes straight from solo queue. So good luck.
I do think there is some track record, though, of solo queue guys actually doing very well in competitive environments. My big example being Faker. Had a team built around him, and SKT won the World Championship that very season. So is Rush the Faker? That's probably a bit lofty.
Maybe a little.
At the very least, there is an example of this happening, right? There's always a chance this does work out.
And there is always that chance. Up next, at number 3, we have CounterLogic Gaming's not quite so legal acquisition of Zion Spartan. Now, Zion, he's going to be on his 3rd team in 3 LCS split seasons. And he's going to be replacing Seraph in that top lane, something that CLG have had a lot of trouble with the top lane. But it's going to be, at first, a good thing for them. They're going to have a threat in the top lane, take some pressure off of double lift. At first glance, it seems like a good move for them. That's always sort of been Zion's style, play more carry-oriented top laners and split push, but it's going to have a pretty big impact because he won't be playing in the first week either.
Yeah, so I guess we have to wait a little while to see how much that roster change actually matters. The big thing I have with this, though, is that CLG tried to carry top laner back when they acquired Voyboy in Season 2, and the CLG way of top laners was to mold them into to protect the double lift top laner, just make him play Malphite, make him play Shen, things like this. If they can let him actually play his own style, if Zion gets to be a big carry, CLG gets to mature as a team, I think it's very good for them.
I mean, that's what I hope happens. If we think back to when they had Voyboy at the Season 2 World Championships, it's a different team. Right? Yeah. They have double lift and the name CLG, and Hotshot GG is doing something with that team. Like, that's it. Everything else is different. Different coach, different laners. I mean, it's a new start for Zion Spartan once again. He seems to be like a fast starter, weak finisher. At least that's what it looked like on Dignitas in his last few days at Coast. So I'm expecting a fast start when he enters the lineup.
Yeah, should be a whole bunch of fun. Now, next up, we have another move that will have a huge impact on the LCS. It's Team Impulse's acquisition of Season 3 World Champion Impact in the top lane.
Yeah, and really, he fell off a fair bit at the end of last year, but I think this is a great time for him to have a new start. This is a player with a ton of experience, World Championship experience, and this should reinvigorate him in my eyes. It is his time to shine, and it's one of the most popular acquisitions for me, personally, in the LCS.
Yeah, I think it's a really big deal. He's a great player, and he's replacing the former Season 3 runner-up. So that's going to be fun to see, like, do the shoes get a little bit bigger?
Godlike to Impact.
Wonderful.
He won, so
must be better.
And at least he does share the main language with their shot callers, so it'll be a little bit easier for Impact to work with the jungler on this new team, but It's going to be a whole crazy bag for this new TIP team.
Yeah, absolutely. And while Impact's move to NA is huge, it's actually another Season 3 world champion from the same team, obviously, that ranks above him on this list. Piglet joins xSpecial and Team Liquid in the bottom lane. This is a really interesting move because Piglet has so much talent and drive.
Yeah, and it's a big move for multiple reasons, not just because of, how big a star Piglet is, but also because this is a huge change for Curse as an organization. Since Season 2, they've always had the same AD carry, Cop, and they would just switch out supports and bring in all these different supports for him to work with. Now, they're actually changing AD carries over to Piglet. It's going to be a completely different story. You already mentioned his drive. He leveled up an account from level 1 when he came over to North America. He's been putting in a lot of time over here. Yeah, it only took him about a week, but he put in all that time and effort as soon as he got over here. And the Curse guys also have been doing a good job of, welcoming him over to North America and trying to integrate him into the team lifestyle so that he feels part of the team.
Yeah, the one tricky thing, though, I think here is that Curse has repeatedly brought in these, all-star talents from everywhere else. They got Edward from Gambit for a while. That didn't change anything. Quas, I think, was a good pickup for them at the very least. I think Quas is probably their best acquisition to date. Piglet might end up doing really well. The one also really fun thing here is Curse just every single time ends up getting 4th place. Piglet, thankfully, got 4th place in his own regionals right before this happened, so he's a natural fit for the roster.
Yeah, the one thing they have to watch out for, though, is the adjusting to North America or even getting over here. I saw Piglet in the stands of an LCK match earlier, and xSpecial even vlogged about some of the issues they're having getting those guys over here. So that will be interesting to see, but once they get in there, I can't wait. But we do also have storylines because we've done the 5 top player acquisitions, and hey, why not just do the top 5 storylines heading into these games on Saturday as well?
Yeah, so we've already mentioned Impact, Piglet, and Rush, and there are going to be 5 other Korean players on the North American LCS squads this split. We're going to have to see if this is actually what's going to be good for these guys. We've seen a lot of foreign imports. Some of them work out. Some of them don't go very well. I personally like Bjergsen. He went well for TSM, but we mentioned before Seraph didn't do well with CLG. How well are these foreign imports going to keep doing?
I think there's completely different levels of what it means. If you're importing European players, it's very minimal as far as the impact, as long as they're not offended too much by the culture, and it depends how homesick they get. But it's a completely other level if they barely speak English and they're now playing League of Legends with these guys. And a lot of it is just a case-by-case basis. Some of these kids are able to adjust really quickly, and some of them are going to have some big issues.
Yeah, there's so many things you have to account for when bringing a new player, not only onto a new team, but over into a new country with a different language. It really depends on the player and the psychology of the actual person. For me, though, I'm going to be keeping an eye on 2 teams that had pretty much their rosters blown wide open. They lost a lot of star power, and they did their best to fill up these holes with new people. I'm talking about LMQ, which is now going to be TIP, Team Impulse, and also Dignitas. So LMQ, they went to the Worlds.
And they almost made it out of groups. They were in the group of death, and they did great.
Right.
Yeah, started out 2-0.
Yeah.
Didn't go very well from there, but yeah, there's a bunch of star power there. It's only Xiao remaining.
Yeah, so Xiao is going to be the only person that's actually returning for that team. They are bringing in a lot of people. As we mentioned already, Impact and Rush. Those are some pretty high-powered guys. However, they're also going to be using a bottom lane from North America. WizFusion, now Apollo. Good name change there. But we'll see how he does with his new support because, as I said, Rush is going to be the shot caller for this team. He's the Korean solo queue star, and he does speak good English. However, Xiao doesn't speak very much. And as we said, Impact cannot speak any English, so it's going to be really hard for those guys to work together. Meanwhile, Dignitas, they also brought in Koreans, Core JJ and Gamsu, who are decent players, but not really all-stars, not going to change the game for these guys.
Yeah, and we didn't see Dignitas perform extremely well at IEM either, but it takes time for these things, and especially a team like Dignitas, they're bringing in foreign languages. That's going to take a little bit of time to kind of mature in there.
Yeah, the Dignitas one, I'm not I'm not really excited about. I think it's going to be a really, really rough road for them.
Hey, you're worried? This happens every time for Dignitas. Yeah. Everyone's like, they're going to suck. And then they go 8-0, and they're like, we're back, baby! And then they almost get relegated.
I believed in them when they first picked up Shifter. I thought that was going to work really well for them, and it did at the start, and as Dignitas, as they petered out. But I do want to get back to Impulse. I actually believe in their bottom lane. I actually think WizFusion, Apollo, and Adrian are actually going to do pretty well. That everyone's kind of understating them. It's the foreigners that are big. I think it's actually a really good bottom lane.
All right, you're on the record. If they don't do well, Phreak's wrong. Anyway, I want to talk about CLG because they did have a bunch of changes, but they are one of the few all North American teams. And CLG is so intriguing because we always talk about CLG's potential. But seriously,
Yeah.
this time, Zion Spartan in the top lane, the fact that Doublelift and Nafamu are returning, I really need to see if Link and Xmithy can pull this team together, because I feel like the bottom lane is a given for success. Zion Spartan is a given that he can at least win his lane, and if they can bring it all together, they're going to be really good, especially because all these other teams will have communication issues, cultural issues. CLG shouldn't have any of these, and they'd be poised for success.
And everybody on that team had to go through tryouts, except for Doublelift and Aphromo, to get back onto this team. So everybody has put in a lot of work to get there. You know, there was all these questions around Link, or, you know, around who's going to be the jungler. Those guys worked their butts off to get on CLG. And
I actually am really excited for Xmithy specifically, because we're talking about all these Season 3 World Champions, Piglet showing up, Impact showing up.
Yeah, where was he the last year?
Well,
it just comes back out of
sure,
nowhere.
Yeah, but also Smithy specifically went to Worlds as one of the top spots from NA when he was on Vulcan back in the day.
Yeah.
Back in Season 3, he was arguably the #2 jungler in North America at that time behind Meteos. This guy brings him back up to that level where he's the second best jungler in the NA LCS behind Meteos. CLG's got a freaking amazing roster.
It's hard to, you know, come out of
sure.
professional
Hotshot
retirement.
GG was the best top laner in the world at one point.
I know. I just like to really believe in people. It makes me sound dumb a lot, but I like to be like, look, he was this good. Maybe we'll see it again.
All right, you're on record.
Yeah, on record once more. I want to see Xmithy do well. And as we wait to see if CLG can finally live up to their potential, there are 2 new LCS teams this spring split, bringing a lot of LCS old school veterans back in with them. We're talking about Gravity here, formerly Curse Academy. They've got Cop in there, Bunny Fufu in there, St. Vicious in there, all these guys that were on Curse. And these guys are trying to make themselves do just do great back when they were in the LCS. Team Coast is the other one. They've got some EU players coming in. They've got Jesses and Impaler. Those guys were having some sort of middle of the road performances. They got imported, they got dropped from their teams. Coast wanted them. These are these rosters of almost retired pros who proved they were good enough to get back into the LCS, and now can they prove that they're good enough to get to the top of the LCS?
Hey, that's going to be another one of those storylines. St. Vicious, he's seen it all. So, he's just going to be the chillest person in the LCS, win or lose, I feel like.
I like the relaxed way that he handled getting back into the LCS, too. He just, okay, yeah, we're back, guys. I'll be here for another split. See how it goes. I guess we got in.
If not, I can just stream.
Yeah.
That's just done. Anyway, we can't look ahead at the NA LCS without looking at the most dominant team in the LCS over the last 2 years, Cloud9, obviously. Now, since entering the LCS back in 2013, Cloud9's won 2 LCS splits, earned 2 straight trips to the quarterfinals of Worlds, and they're also the only LCS team to start the same 5 guys over the last 3 splits, not even mentioning they're the only team starting the same roster from last split. So I'm really excited to see if these guys can continue their domination. They had a good showing at IEM. They do have that solid core group. I'd be worried a little bit about exhaustion and wondering if it's been so long with them never being able to take it over the top, and if they get bored in the NLCS. I think that's what they're going to be battling against.
I think that's one good thing about how League of Legends, though, is kind of controlled, is every season a lot of big things changes, a lot of new jungler starts now. Like, I do think that actually really helps with the longevity of players, where it's like, oh, I get something new to adapt to every single year, or sometimes mid-season when you have big changes like the AD carry atomization updates back in like 4.12 or so. I think that definitely helps keep people revitalized and keep that drive alive.
It's one of the things that Cloud9 has always really held dear, is their love of the game. All these guys love playing solo queue after they're done with their scrims. We see them all streaming pretty much every day, and they've got full scrim blocks all those days too. So they really like playing this game. The other thing is, they didn't change their roster, but they are the team that did have to move. So they, I think, are going to be the only North American LCS team that's not actually living in LA now. It's just a short plane ride away up to San Jose or whatever, but that is a little bit of a factor you always have to take into account, having to commute every day.
Interesting discussion I had with Jack, their owner. He actually thinks that move will benefit them because they'll get more communication time after the game, but that's all up for debate.
Force them to be in a plane and talk to each other. There's no
internet. Wasn't any good enough.
Jack, they're all like, Jack, is there Wi-Fi on this plane? Nope.
Yeah, definitely not.
You have to talk to each other.
Thank you very much, guys. 5 biggest storylines. That's going to all be kicking off on Saturday for North American LCS. But let's actually send it back to Riv to take a look at some fantasy.